and welcome back to Prop by the Bar. Is our away or home venue this is.
This is like the alternate training track.
The old training track at West End. So thanks, Cam, for hosting us today. Episode 14, and again, blown away by the support and thanks, or not thanks, but the commentary we get. Some good, some bad.
Got a lot of views on this last
we have
episode
the last
for Ranoch
views,
House.
so.
Fantastic. Thank you everybody who looked at that one. That was a good property. And that's
it's not your everyday
no
residential property, but it's a marvellous one at that. And talking about marvellous properties, we're going to check one out a bit later on in our property of the week, but we'll get to that a bit later. Right now, market.
It's been interesting. It's been more than interesting.
There's been,
I keep worrying we're not going to have enough to talk about at these episodes, being a month apart, right? And but the last month has been extraordinary from a commercial property point of view, I think.
Well, I think everything, even residentially. Like, I have a look at what we're doing at agency level, and I reckon 9 out of 10 properties are being listed as an auction campaign and selling really well at an auction. But you have a look at what's actually happening at market, anecdotally, mixed with some of the headlines that you get, and you sit there scratching your head. Like, if I could just read one that was in the Geelong Advertiser on March 26, it said, "Market cools as price pass peak." Now, some of the statistics that they actually, I'll pick out two here. They talk Geelong West, that the peak date was January 2022.
Yep.
And the median house price then was $896,000.
Yeah.
Compared with a March median house price of $895,000.
That's only $1,000 difference.
Or a 0.1% change.
So
when the last 12 months has been 14% increase.
I think somehow these journalists, I don't want to point fingers, but they're starting to try and write their own story, right? Yeah. And it's a little bit silly, and for us in the market that are inactive at the coalface, these statistics, like median house pricing across short periods, is anybody who knows maths knows that that's ridiculous because you don't have enough variables. And I think you got in Geelong massive suburbs, and you can have one house sell at the top of the peak of the market, like for example, a Skeen Street sells and gets a really high number, and that month that median house price is going to go up because you got that one sale that was a high number. And in the same suburb, the next month you might get Camden Street sells in Newtown, and it's a much lower number. And so therefore you had a median low price is lower. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't reflect the market. It doesn't reflect what's happening. And I think we're seeing this more and more and more. It's not just the journalists, it's coming from the banks as well. We've got, I've got some statistics here from the banks. We both did our homework this week for once. NAB has forecast a 4.9% lift in property values in 22 and a decrease of 4% in 2023. ANZ has predicted a 6% price hike in 2022 and a drop of 4% in 2023. And CBA says 7% 2022, 10% down next year. There's a big drop down, 10%, that's a big one. And 8% for Westpac. So Westpac says we're going to rise up by 8% this year, 22, and correct or go back down by 5% in 2023. So all the banks are saying we're in for a steadying dash increase now and then a decrease in 2023. Are they just also getting ready for, making their bed so that they can lift interest rates and all that sort of stuff?
Look, inevitably we're not going to get 20% increases every year like we have. I think there's an element of the banks probably trying to shore up their books in some of the commentary as well, trying to probably fix rates and whatnot and get people's positions locked in, because I think their books are...
Well, they're not making much money on 2% home loans, are they?
Well, and they haven't shifted cash rates as well. So we sort of know that they probably don't need the cash.
But delinquencies are right down. Like people aren't foreclosing at the moment. So when you would have thought if we're coming out of COVID, you go overseas, have a look at overseas markets. They've got foreclosing in that. I just think that the banks put too much stock in what's happening overseas and not focusing here. And I think the journalists jump on the back of that and start publishing stuff, writing a story to get in front of a story. And it's just...
And look, it depends. Like we still haven't seen overseas migration come back, which both of us expect a big lift in interest again in the regional areas when that happens. So look, I think Geelong's uniquely placed, and a lot of those statistics are, whether they're state or national driven, I just think Geelong's pretty uniquely placed. Like one of the other headlines that tells one story, but when you read the article, it tells another one. It says property price slowdown. Now, when you actually, for me, I say that things are slowing down, but when you actually read that the median house rose, median value in Geelong rose 0.7% in March, compared with 0.3% in all other regional areas in Victoria. So
We would say we've risen faster, but isn't it the same paper that's published that?
yeah, 4 days apart, but
Yeah.
anyway. But like,
Conflicting statistics.
why don't we actually talk about some of the results that we've seen over the last couple of
Well,
weeks?
look, if we want to talk residentially, there's been some magnificent sales. And you talk about medium house prices. There's a property in Hamlin Heights that sold for 1.6 million, and the medium house price in there is about 700,000. So it's surpassed, doubled the medium house price in that suburb. So we're going to expect to see the medium house price of Hamlin Heights double next month by CoreLogic Stats or whoever puts those statistics in. The underbidder
This is
on
not
that,
on the back of last episode when you said Hamlin Heights is going to go through the roof, did you?
I did predict it, didn't I? Look at that. See, I told you. And it was, I think it was Candace's last sale. So she left the industry, but last going out, she sold a record for that location, which is fantastic. And the underbidder was an agent too, I hear. So unfortunately for them, but when you're underbid as an agent, they know that market. It means that price is real. That was a real
and there was
value
4
for that
bidders on
property.
the day as well. So to drive it to that.
You got a property in Skene Street, 2.86 million, right, for a Skene Street property. So Skene Street is a great street. But that was a really good sale as well. There's rumours that there's a property on Noble Street, and I can't tell you which one, sold for 4.7 million. And down near the Geelong College there. So that's a huge sale for Geelong. So there has been some remarkably big sales. There's one sale that I want to point out though that happened only just this weekend at Port Arlington with 14 Brown Street, Port Arlington. So this is a block of land. This is a house that's a knockover. Block of land in Port Arlington, sits behind the pub. You can't actually get any ocean views from it. You can't build any higher because the development's in front of it. So it's not like you could say that you're going to get ocean views or anything from it. The asking price was 1.1. They sold it for 1.65 under the hammer. There was 187 bids. 187 bids from a huge number of purchasers. And that equates to 2,400 a square metre, which puts it at a much higher rate per square metre than most areas of Geelong, certainly any of the in areas as well. So it's a huge number for Port Arlington. Daniel Lamana, Stockdale Lego, did that one. Fantastic bloke and good agent. And congratulations, Daniel, because that's a cracker. But it's not just in residential.
Yeah, I was wanting to probably switch the conversation here to commercial. That is my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But some of the results, probably even over the last 2 weeks, I've been, I have to say, astounded in some of the yields that we're achieving in industrial.
And this is where you start to scare the valuers, mate, when you start putting out sales like this one. And what you're obviously referring to is your own sale at 4 Wilray Street in Grovedale.
Well, there's been a number. Like I know Darce got one away in Marshalltown, and we had another one in Barwon Terrace. But there's been a number of sales across the industrial sector over the last even 2 weeks.
Wilray Street Industrial Shed, Metal Deck Industrial Shed, 850,000, 2.7% yield.
950. Yeah.
950, sorry.
950.
And 143 Marshalltown Road, Grovedale, 145,000 or thereabouts, 2.64%. Right, that's very tight yields. But arguably, and my valuer colleagues will confer, that is, the rent's a bit light on both of them. And I think once you do your analysis and bring them back up to rent, they're still sitting around mid-threes, 3 to mid-threes on your cap rates or yields.
Which is still very tight.
Which is very, very tight for industrial that we used to put 6.5 to 7% on. So that's a long way. Only 2 years ago. Yeah. And I think that 4 Wilray Street, I might have valued that in the last 3 years, and I think I was at around 6.5 or 6%. So, and that was the market then. So these properties have doubled and some.
Friday, just passed. There was 6 bidders.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interest. Like you talk about the yields.
Yeah.
And I know Marshalltown Road was similar. You talk about the yields, but there's multiple people prepared to buy something in those locations
at a tight cap rate. Yeah. And does that set the market in perpetuity? So, and that's the problem we're having at the moment is as valuers. It's really tough when you guys pop out these sales like this that are They are outliers. They're at the bottom of the range, but they're outliers, right? But it's pulling the range down all the time. It's pulling that value range down, which is pushing values up. So when you get a lower yield, you get a higher capital value. And it's not just in the industrial stuff, it's also stretched across the land. Right, so we had that industrial bit of land there sold at 105 Barwon Terrace, I think. And they got 3.62 million for it, which is about $350 a square metre or thereabouts. So it's a really strong environment in all sectors of industrial.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we've got a bit of a roving Mike episode of Prop by the Bar this month. We're actually going to go and have a chat to Ryan Smith MP, the opposition or the shadow minister for planning. And we're going to do that in a special location, which we'll get to right now. We're also going to go on the road for our property of the week, and next month, I should say.
Next month, yeah.
Again, we're going to hit the road again and go to a location for property of the week.
Looking forward to that.
But why don't we get on to the rest of the episode? Welcome back to Prop by the Bar, and welcome to the Mercer. We're lucky enough to have one of Geelong's most prolific developers here, so we actually thought before we go to our interview this month, we might pick the brain of Matthew's son, the developer of the Mercer. Welcome, Matthew.
Well, thank you, Michael, and welcome to Mercer, the $1 million view in Geelong.
Only $1 million, you
Only
reckon?
$1 million. You're a bit cheaper there.
I reckon it might be about 4 or 5 million, I reckon.
I'm very glad I'm just welching off you today, Matthew, instead of actually having to come up with $1 million. But it is terrific up here, though. Have a look around. You've got a spa over there. You even got a driving range somewhere here as well?
That's right, at the back.
Yeah, fantastic.
Matthew, this is fantastic. Obviously, 128 apartments.
Yeah.
From idea, conception, to reality, moving in.
Yeah.
How long was the process?
About 5 years.
About 5 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any nervous points you want to tell us about?
Oh, not much. When the start is the confidence from Geelong people.
Yeah.
And they're not getting used to living in the apartment. And I think that's the downside. But in the end of the day, because there was another project on the way at the same time, which called Miramar. And I think they are very successful as well. I think 2 apartments and the building and they come out at the same time in Geelong is never...
We used to call this building the canary in the birdcage, right? Where we used to say, if this gets off the ground, if this gets up and is successful, the apartment market in Geelong will be created, right? And at the time when you started this, there absolutely wasn't one. And everybody compared it to the doom and gloom that happened on the Esplanade 10 years ago. So, you really put everything on the line to get this one out of the ground.
That's right. It's my passion, my gut. I want to do it, and for Geelong people.
Yeah, well, different product, different times, and obviously the time now is in Geelong. Would we twist your arm to do another one?
Oh, maybe. Depends.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my golf, so everything is timing. The timing is very important. Yeah. And don't jump in when everyone else doing. You think, oh, this is the time. But I think that sometimes is when everyone else doing it, maybe could become the oversupply for the market as well. Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's got to be very
I don't see an oversupply at the moment, Mike. I think there's still a lot of demand.
Definitely not now because for my experience, for off-plan we sold, and for now the market value about 30 to 40% of growth.
So if you ask me, this type of development or these type of high-rise apartment developments, this is where that stock of affordable housing has to come from.
Yeah.
That's right.
It has to come from here because you're not going to get it out the estates anymore when you're buying land for $400,000 and $500,000 and building it for another $400,000. That's not affordable.
You're not going to get this view, are you?
No, you're not going to get these views.
Yeah. That's right. I think the affordability is come to the apartment. Yeah.
Your breakdown from owner occupiers, investors, Geelong locals, Melbourne.
Yeah, I think the breakdown is the investor probably 1/3, and for the investors, and probably 10% is from Melbourne, and 20% from Geelong, and the majority is the owner occupier in particular, and the waterfront. Whoever wants to pay $1 million for their view, they have to be local people.
Well, you joke about that, don't you? You joke about, but you did just sell an apartment, which is almost a record for Geelong, a $3.2 million apartment, which is nowhere near anywhere as good as your own one.
Yeah.
So you've actually got a couple of really high-end apartments. There's one apartment on the market at the moment for $5.2 million. Do you think you can get it? Do you think that's an affordable area? Do you think we'll get up to that level?
I don't know. As good as and people get, isn't it?
Well,
That's right.
yeah,
If somebody willing to pay, that's the market
It would
value.
be. It would be a.
But you only need
that's right.
one person to pay, isn't it?
Well, that's right. Only one. Well, in
So I think
valuation, we argue it takes more than one to create a market.
I think you take an opportunity whoever can afford it.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? At that level, it'll be really interesting to see because that would be a record. That'd be a massive record. In fact, it'd be a record by a couple of million over the next previous highs.
We'll just wait and see. Anyway, we're about to interview our next guest, but we just want to thank you, Matthew, and letting us interview our guest from up here. The views are fantastic, and congratulations on what you've accomplished here.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Gareth.
My pleasure. And we do know Matthew's running for mayor. So.
Cut it.
And we're here on the 15th floor of the Mercer in Geelong. Might say that this was the first 15-storey building to be developed in central Geelong. And we are sitting here with the Honourable Ryan Smith MP, who currently is the member for Warrandyte, and the Shadow Planning Minister and Finance Minister.
That's correct.
So we thought, since we are on Prop by the Bar, we've gone on location. We might as well have a beer just to keep things familiar. But anyway, thanks for joining us on the show.
Real pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, pretty topical that we are sitting here on one of the later developments in central Geelong.
Yep.
I think our show's been dominated over the last few months about this height proposal. So, from a shadow minister's perspective, why is any decision or any real, nailing a decision down taking so long?
Well, it's a real problem, I think, at the moment that things do take so long. I mean, we recently had the government propose significant changes when it came to the regulation and the red tape around planning. In fact, the Premier himself said that there were actually billions of dollars of inefficiencies tied up in the system. Now, he tied rectifying those inefficiencies with a property tax, which I think the industry and the opposition can take some credit for as well, which highlighted to people that tax was going to go on new properties and would end up being paid for by home buyers. To tie that tax to all those inefficiencies is just crazy, because Geelong's not the only place in Victoria that's really been held up in terms of development approvals because of those inefficiencies.
Like, we've spoken a number of times. It's probably the one topic that's dominated our show over the last 12 months, but we feel that development has really, or any planning approvals or submissions have been probably put on hold for about 18 months.
Yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, when Planning Minister Richard Wynne made the decision that he wasn't going to run in the next election, I felt like that was the last decision he was going to make for the next year and a half. So it's an unfortunate message to developers right across the state and here in Geelong as well, that I don't think too much is going to move between now and the election.
So you think he won't make a decision on the Central Geelong Framework Plan until after the election?
Well, he's not going to be there. I think that if he feels like there's any discomfort for his local MPs that they're going to have to wear, I think he'd rather just put it on hold. He's going to be retiring. Who knows who the next planning minister is going to be if Labor wins, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of movement.
That's the worst thing they could do. Like, honestly, we've been held back from development for 2 years. Right at the moment, there's 13 government jobs in terms of projects, 13 government projects on the go in Geelong, and only one private sector job on the go. And the reason that's being is because private sector cannot get through the red tape. We can't get through to build things. I can tell you from talking to my clients, there's over $1 billion worth of property development ready to go in Geelong once they can get some surety around what they can build.
Well, I think post-pandemic, we want to get the money moving. We want to get the economy going. We want things to get back on track. We've had 2 years of relative doom and gloom from our Premier, and I think that the important thing is we need to get things moving. Now, what I've seen in Geelong is exactly what you said. There's a lot of government pet projects that are moving reasonably quickly, and I think the local members, spruik those every day. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of local developers here who want to see Geelong at its best, who want to get things moving. I really can't understand why you wouldn't facilitate that, particularly at the end of this pandemic where really the economy in so many ways is tanking. Let's get things moving, just let's get things going.
And Geelong, it's created actually a bigger problem because affordable housing has been a problem right across the state for a long time.
Yep.
And as we've had this increase of population in Geelong, about 26,000 people over the last 18 months or so, it's the biggest spike in population since the gold rush for this region. And there's just nowhere for them to live. And because we've got 2.5 years worth of land supply left, which is bugger all, really, we're not releasing enough blocks to build. We haven't got any planning and permits available for residential high-rise development. And it's just compounding the problem of affordable housing at the bottom. It's the people at the bottom that are hurting because we've got oversupply and over demand and under supply, and it's pushing prices up and up, and there's more and more people being left out.
I think, look, we've got some really short-term issues. We've got longer-term ones as well. With the population of Geelong is forecasted to go up by about 150,000 over the next, 20 years. That's more than the population of Ballarat coming into Geelong. I mean, we've got to make sure that there's housing supply. We've got to make sure also, as you rightly say, that we've got an eye on affordability. And when we talk about height restrictions earlier, that's a key point, because we need to make sure that not only have we got the supply of housing, but we've got a range of from apartment living to, single blocks and things, townhouses in the middle. We've got to make sure there's a range of housing that's available for people and that it's affordable. And with, 38% of a property's value now going into as government taxes. I mean, that's got to stop as well. And these extra taxes the government insists on putting on property developers all end up getting paid by the homeowner.
Well, I think we called it here, didn't we, Mike? We said last episode, we said that property tax needed to be thrown out because 1.7% on the property tax.
You called it out, Gareth.
I called it.
And 2 days later...
Look out, Spencer Street are listening, Mike. They watch What's Pop by the bar. They pulled that tax. Thank you very much, Minister. I think they might have realised that those maths don't add up. But the thing...
Well, let me just say, if they get re-elected, it'll go back on. It's nothing short. They're not proposing a tax for no reason. They get in, that tax is going on.
The thing about affordable housing, I want to ask you, what do you think is the level for a affordable house? What should you have to pay to deem that affordable house? Because I can point to an outer suburb like Belmont in Geelong, where standard townhouses are selling for $1 million. Right, a townhouse for $1 million. And that's gone from 5 years ago. We wouldn't have seen them over 650,000. So tell me, what do you think is an affordable house?
Well, it's not a one size fits all. Unfortunately, I can't give you a straight answer because housing affordability means different things to different people. What a government needs to do, though, is make sure that there is that range of different types of housing so that it can be afforded. And I would say, that does go to a necessity for some high density living in any municipality. And I would say, my view is, if I was to take the job as planning minister post-election, I would certainly be having discussion with local municipalities about where their high density should be. Every municipality needs to take responsibility for a growing population, but it's not for state government to tell local government where is best for that high density. And then there's some really good examples, some councils that are doing it really, really well. But I would also say that if councils don't want to take that responsibility on, then state government will step in. As planning minister, I would step in. But again, affordability means a different thing to different people, but it is a government's responsibility to make sure there's a range of housing available at different levels of affordability.
It's interesting that you say that, because last year we interviewed the Mayor Stephanie Asher at the time, and she said, in relation to the height, it's not something that's come from a council thing, that we love seeing these developments, and why wouldn't they? It's 100 council rates on one square block, but she said that we fight the battles that we can fight.
It's not for the state planning minister in Spring Street to tell municipalities right across the length and breadth of Victoria what's best for their cities.
Yep.
Again, if councils aren't taking the responsibility on of saying where that high density living is going to be, then state should step in. But at the first instance, we should leave it to local governments and local communities to make those decisions.
I agree, because it flies in the face of what they're trying to achieve, which is, I think there's about 2,500 people living within central Geelong currently, and they want 12,000 by 2028, I think it is. And
no plan to get there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what they're doing is, anti, development essentially.
That's right.
So,
well, being anti-development doesn't fix the problem. I mean, again, you put high density development where it's appropriate. Local council usually knows where that is. Council officers are usually pretty good in that regard as well. As I said, there's some really good examples of councils in metropolitan Melbourne and beyond that are really good at this stuff. And I think that we should just roll that model out. It should be local government's decision for sure.
Ryan, one of the biggest things I think people in Geelong a bit sick of is that no one listens to us. Yeah. Absolutely no one. We have been jumping up and down. The City of Geelong did a study, I think 3 studies now, to move the buses off Marlborough Street, and there's been quite clear call from the community to move the buses off Marlborough Street. Now, a lot of people think that that's a City of Geelong jurisdiction. It's not. It's a state government call, right? Along with a whole lot of other stuff that state government calls, like the Green Spine. Now, we all like this Green Spine. We like where it's going. I wouldn't say that we're overly happy with how it's been rolled out and the place
the way
it's been rolled out.
Executed and.
But the whole overall plan was quite good. I mean, I think that they just didn't consult, and I think on that one particularly, because what they did is they put trees in front of shop fronts and all sorts of stuff. It's the same thing with Marlborough Street. We've got multiple things seem to be happening in this town that are state government based that aren't. But we've got the panel hearing, for example, for the Central Framework Plan, where everybody on the panel, not one person was from Geelong. In fact, some of the panel members, when they were questioned about it, said they hadn't been to Geelong in decades. Yeah. So how can we, what would your government do differently around that?
Well, when I was formerly the Environment Minister, when we were in government last, I had a number of boards that I had to appoint, and I made sure that there were people with A, expertise, but B, people with local knowledge. And I think that's the way to go. To get the best outcomes, that's what you've got to do. Now, consultation might be feel like it's a bit of a chore for governments, but at the end of the day, it saves you a lot of time going forward when you actually deal with people at a grassroots level. I'm not saying, deal with them ad infinitum. Don't sit there for months and months making sure you're going to get agreement right across the board, because that doesn't happen. But if you're out there, you can fix some of the minor problems pretty quickly with local knowledge. And I would say any panel that I had to appoint would have to have local representation on it. Would just have to.
I think that's a fresh there, because we really do feel like that, right, don't we?
Oh, 100%. And I think, locally, and just to bring it back to, say, the buses, there's a clear divide right in the middle of the heart of the CBD. Yeah. Now, if you ask council, you ask stakeholders, you ask the shopping centres, you ask local businesses what they want those buses moved. Yeah. But state government say, no.
It's crazy. It really is. I can't understand why you wouldn't take those local considerations into account. It just seems counterintuitive. And at the very least, I'll be a little partisan in an election year. You elect your local state representatives who are members of the government to make these representations for you. At the end of the day, local reps should be representing communities to government, not being apologists for government the other way. It's if your local members aren't advocating for what the community needs, then I would ask, what's the point of them?
Yep. So it is an election year. We're expecting a state election in November. Yeah. Under Guy's government, under possible, Planning Minister Smith, what can we expect in Geelong?
Unicorns and rainbows.
Fantastic.
No, look, I think Geelong, Victoria is one of those uniquely placed. Victoria's a uniquely placed state in Australia that can accommodate 2 major cities. Melbourne and Geelong are those 2 cities. Now, we should be able to really accommodate. Firstly, we have to accommodate the people. So the issues that we spoke about before about housing availability is certainly something we have to address. But between a fairly big representation of the public sector here, you've got Deakin University, who have got great opportunities to collaborate with business on innovative solutions to the issues that business are facing. We've got the Spirit of Tasmania coming here shortly. The place is going to be a boom town. What we have to make sure as a government is that all the infrastructure is there to accommodate it. We've got to make sure that the rail services are adequate. We've got to make sure, when I was down here last week, we heard a lot about the fact that the bus issues, as you've mentioned, are a real problem. We've got to deal with that as well. We've got to deal with a whole range of different things here, making sure, as I said, the infrastructure is in place for new developments around Lovely Banks and Batesford South and Barwon Heads. We've got to make sure everything is in place to accommodate the influx of people that are coming here. And there should be an influx of people coming here. We've got to make this place as attractive as it can be. It will help with the congestion in the city. It'll help with the movement from here and everywhere in between to the CBD. We want to decentralise so much more than what's happening at the moment. And maybe if we can find a silver lining in the pandemic, we know, or people understand now, that they don't have to go to the city to work. If we can present a viable alternative for them, then that's a good thing going forward to help with the way that we manage congestion in the whole state. And Geelong is that place to do it.
There's one thing that I've struggled with, and Gareth and I also sit on an advisory board. where we seem to be going bike lane centric, which is part a cancel initiative, which I understand it, but without a public transport system that works, which is then state government, it sort of seems to be that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing.
Yeah.
So how do we get to a stage under a different government where the link between the state government infrastructure and the council infrastructure can talk?
Well, if I can use the analogy, I guess, of what's going on in Melbourne at the moment, Melbourne has had just an influx of bike lanes, particularly under the cover of COVID. And we've seen more and more cars being forced to go slower, the movement through the city so much worse than what it has been. As far as Melbourne's concerned, I would, as Minister, have a real good look at what's been the ramifications of that policy, and I would do something about it if it was shown to be a negative outcome. For Geelong, I think that, again, we've got to accommodate people. Now, at the moment, the government operates with some pretty mega departments. So when you say, how can state government work with local government to get the best outcome in terms of transport, the problem we've got at the moment, we've got these behemoth departments that can't even talk to each other. Yeah. They're so big and so unwieldy, and it's so difficult to get things moving. We've got departmental secretaries that report to, in some cases, 5 or 6 different ministers. It's too unwieldy. And I think one of the ways we can make it easier and with less blockages is to actually maybe have a look at shrinking those departments down and making sure that they're not so unwieldy. The Red Tape Commissioner put forward 27 recommendations. She worked with business for a year and a half. The recommendations are there. The work's been done. Industry's ticked off on all the recommendations, saying that they would do an enormous amount to free up the process. And look, I would be certainly, as Planning Minister, taking those recommendations and implementing them because they're common sense, they're sensible, and there is no reason in the world why government shouldn't move on them. Particularly, as I said, post-pandemic, you want to get the money moving, you want to get the economy stimulated, and that's one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of work between now and November for the election, and we wish you all the best. Thanks for coming on propped at the top level of Mercer, but thanks for
on the balcony.
Yeah, how good is it to have that in the background? That's fantastic.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the invitation to be here.
So it's that time of the month for Property of the Week, and we've gone out on the road again.
On the road.
And it's one of those ones where you're driving along around Geelong, you're busy racing in and out of your car, getting to work. And if you actually stick the head up once in a while, you actually see some of the beauty of the heritage buildings that we have. And we're lucky enough to get a sneak peek of one that's about to hit the market with release property. And it's 2 MALOP Street, the former ANZ Bank.
It's absolutely full of so much, Mike. There's got 890 square metres of net lettable area. We've got nearly 900 square metres of land. There's 4 lease covenants, I believe, over the back offices areas. The front half is owner-occupied. So there's a lot of the footprint, the old part of the building is all owner-occupied, but it's only the offices at the back with the tenancies. So there's a bit of holding income with this one. There's 3 different levels. There's 22 square metres of net lettable area on the ground floor, 355 square metres on the second floor, and 213 square metres of net lettable area on the first floor.
Before we go and have a sneak peek inside, the building's actually full of a few little secrets.
It is.
That some people may not know.
Well, you might not know, but this is Barrable bluestone construction building. So this isn't what it would have looked like when it was built in 1852. It's a Barrable bluestone face that's had, and as you know, very similar to Customs House, and also obviously Frankie's, this other building here, and a few others around Geelong. The Barrable sandstone it is, and it comes from quarried out of Barrable, obviously, but it's really a sheety type stone, so it sheets away with the wind. And so over the years, these buildings deteriorate quite fast. And in the 60s, this was deteriorating enough that bits were falling on people and they had to redo the facade. So this facade is a brick veneer over the top of the old building and the glorious building that sits behind it.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got the owner and the agent. Why don't we go in and have a look?
All right, so they've actually let us into this fabulous building, which used to be a bank and probably was built to keep people like me out. But this is the Bank of Australasia, originally, which is now ANZ. We're standing here with Colin, who is one of the owners, the son of the owners or part of the ownership family structure trustee thing. But thank you for letting us in, Colin, especially when there's people working.
Yeah,
so,
you're welcome.
And it's cool, isn't it? And if you pan that camera up, have a look at this. This is awesome. This reminds me of Burke Street Post Office, Mike.
Yeah, we're now H&M.
That's right, yeah. You've got that big void where you would have
Truly
walked
one
in.
of those unique buildings. We always wonder, driving past here, what's inside. But now those are wondering can actually see. So,
And you're an accountancy firm?
Yes, we are.
Yep. And how long have you been in the building?
Well, we've had the building since 1997.
1997.
And different iterations of accounting firms, but Dad's always been part of it.
Is that how you interview your clients behind the old bar there?
Yeah,
Do you just sort of make your clients stand there and go through the window, the teller window there?
Yeah, occasionally.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
all right, so a little bit of history. So started building in 1951, I believe. 1851, I believe.
1852-ish or thereabouts.
Yeah, completed in 1854.
Yep.
So what's been the full history of the building up until 1997, I guess?
Well, as far as I know, it was ANZ Bank. So it's Bank of Australasia, then Bank of Australasia and New Zealand, and then ANZ.
Yep.
And then they went, oh, we don't want big buildings in cities anymore, and they sold it.
So
Your family bought it off the bank?
Yeah.
Yep. So you've had it since then, yeah.
So soon to hit the market.
Soon to hit the market.
So it's going to be up for expression of interest, I believe, with
That's an
release
exclusive,
property.
folks. That's an exclusive. Pop by the bar.
All right, so contact Ross Bywater on that.
Yes.
Going to be sad to see it go.
I am, yeah. It's absolutely awesome building to work in. It'd be nice if I can stay here.
If you have a look around, have a look at these beautiful big light windows coming down and skylights, and all the architecture features that have gone into this building. They just don't build them like this anymore. This is crazy. Apparently, all the dark timber, that's the original stuff. So that's the original tallers, isn't that right, Colin?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and that's the original top you would have come into, which is pretty cool. The Christmas tree, probably not so original, I wouldn't have thought.
No. It's hard to get a tree that's big enough to fill the space, though.
To do justice, yeah.
All right, let's go look at some more of this building. This is cool.
Yep, awesome. At the moment, we're walking around on slab, which was poured somewhere around about the 60s and 70s when they built the back half of the building.
Yep.
And that's so this used to be a wooden floor with trapdoors and stuff in it so that the gold could come in through the...
Yeah, I heard that there's an underground tunnel.
Well,
It goes to the other side
not
of the
anymore.
road or something?
I don't know if it's still there somewhere, but yeah, underneath the slab, presumably they poured a slab to
A bit like the rumour of the underground tunnel between St Joseph's and Sacred Heart, I think.
Well, I think it could be. But,
He's always looking for an escape hatch. He's,
but yeah, the tunnel used to go from here across past Dalgetty's and then down to the...
There's a tunnel in the gold in case people steal it.
with a horse-drawn cart.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
I feel at home, Mike. I feel at home. This is the strong room. The strong room, or the safe. They would have put a lot of gold in here. Captain Moonlight would have loved to be standing where we are.
So, Colin, one interesting little fact that you just pointed out.
Yeah.
These skirtings that
all the skirtings,
look like wood,
Yes, they're not. They're cement.
they're all cement, so they're moulded cement. And all the detail work up in the ceilings there that traditionally we expect to be plaster,
Yes.
cement
But
as well.
It's cement as well, yeah.
So you can imagine the cost and the weight and all that.
When they built it, the guys who could work plaster were way too expensive. So they got the guys who could work cement because they were cheaper.
Hey, look what I just found, Mike. Have a look at this. This is a photo, stole it off your wall.
Yeah.
That's what the original Barrable sandstone facade would have looked like before it
And
was
that's-
bricked over.
That's what was falling off onto people and why it's now brick.
Yeah, there you go.
When was that conversion?
Well, how
made?
magnificent did that look?
I think it was in the 60s.
The 60s. There's a lot to be blamed at the 60s, I think. My dad was born in 1963, so
Let's keep on going. We might just go through the rear of this property, which you can actually see one of the most unique and decorative staircases I've ever seen in Geelong.
When we come in to see these stairs, what I tell everybody is when you walk in, then look up, because it's pretty cool.
all right, let's see.
It
All
goes
right.
up a number of levels if you
Holy
actually have a look all the way up.
That is awesome.
Can you actually just give us a bit of detail of what
is awesome.
all of this is comprised of, I guess?
Yeah. So the lions and what are they, lions or dragons? I think they're lions. They're cast iron, and when they were first built, they were actually gold leaf.
This is beautiful.
And they were black when we got the building, and then we've painted them back over with gold paint. Yeah. It was a bit.
I'm
bit
tempted to
over the top
bite them to
with
see if they're still
gold
gold. I don't know if the viewers can see this what we're looking at here, but this is just, you cannot make this anymore. That is just insane.
So they reckon that this is one of the tallest or the tallest self-supporting staircase in the Southern Hemisphere.
How many levels does it go up?
It's a 4.
Well, if it was built now, it'd
There's
be
a-
5 stories,
Yeah.
but it's 3.
Yeah, there's 4 female heads looking down upon us here.
This would have been the boardroom, wouldn't it? This is like a bank boardroom.
Well, I'm not sure what this was originally, because there's a kitchen and like a dining area at the back there. This could be a ballroom, because this used to be part of the residence.
They've gone and stuck
for the
4
manager.
heads
Yeah.
looking down on the board as they make their decisions. That's what's going on here, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think so. So we had a.
Or are they a mortgage security against a loan, Mike? What do you reckon?
So we're standing now on the roof of the banking chamber. So our feet are 10.5 metres off the floor with just the roof under.
That's high.
It is.
And up on the roof, you can see, like, it's pretty high, but you've also got city car park behind us, people to know where we are.
Yep.
And this facade that sort of you see around the front with the old bluestone or barrelable stone on it. So it sort of looks from the outside taller than it really is.
Well, Colin, thanks for showing us through.
Hey, you're welcome.
As I said earlier, EOR, expression of interest, hit the market with Ross Bywater from Release.
Yep, looking forward to it.
No pressure.
No pressure. We're looking good.
Anyway, thanks very much for having us through and a sneak peek on Propped, and all the best on the campaign.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And thanks for joining us on Propped this month. What a great episode we've had, and lots of thanks this month. Special thanks to Ryan Smith, MP, for joining us on, and Matthew's son. Great vista out there on the balcony. Of course, Colin Bryce and Neville Bryce on 2 MALOP Street, fantastic, and we wish them luck on the sale of that. And of course, the normal thanks, Cam at West End, thanks for hosting us, as well as Chris behind the camera, Johnny, and I actually don't know where my co-star is, but...
Hang on, Mike.
here he is.
I saw this sitting here, Mike. I just thought we're taking this fella home, I reckon. What do you reckon? See you.
Anyway,
Have a good
again,
See you, Mike.
Thanks for
See you
joining
later.
us. We're blown away by the support, as always, and look forward to seeing you next month.